welcome. You're watching Head to Head. I'm Antonina Antosha with UATV. Eastern Ukraine slowly but surely is becoming one of the most heavily mined territories in the world. This was stated by UN's Assistant Secretary General for Humanitarian Affairs, Ursula Mueller, after she visited the conflict zone. The United Nations organization has been watching the situation with the Russian aggression in Ukraine very closely. To talk about the issue, we're joined in the studio today by Volodymir Khandogyi. He is the president of the Ukrainian Foreign Policy Association and an ambassador. Hello, and thank you for coming.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the invitation.
So, as I have already mentioned, Ursula Mueller, after visiting the conflict zone, said that the situation is devastating, that people are basically starving and the territory is being heavily mined, and it's going to take years, dozens of years to demine those territories. What could be done? How can UN help solve this problem?
Well, there is nothing new in what the Secretary General has mentioned.
Yeah.
The mining is only one of the so many problems that exist in the eastern part of Ukraine, and surely the United Nations has a lot to do and has a potential to be involved more closely and more directly into the resolution of the conflict in eastern Ukraine. Now we are talking about the demining. Yes, this is a very long, protracted process, but one has to start it, and we will be very happy if the United Nations will take the burden of solving the mining problem in the eastern part of Ukraine.
What needs to be done to start the demining process?
Well, first of all, we need at least not final, but at least the attempt to resolve the conflict politically. We need to approach both, not only the Ukrainian side is always, I think, ready to be involved in this demining process, but also the other side.
The Kremlin, you mean?
And of course, the Kremlin has the key in this situation. So, first of all, we need at least a hint on the political solution in the area before United Nations can start the demining process.
Do you think Moscow will ever be able, or will ever be up to resolving the political side of the conflict?
Well, never say never. We are hopeful. At least we all recognize that there is no military solution to the conflict, and the only solution is political. So we hope that the Russian side will come to senses and will start working in the direction of the resolution of this conflict. So I am pretty much optimistic in the long term. I don't know what will happen in the nearest future, but the idea of United Nations involvement and the agreement, at least partial agreement of Russia to consider this issue tells that Russia will be ready to come forward and look for the political solution in the area.
Speaking of UN's involvement, President Poroshenko recently mentioned that he doesn't mind, and all of the other member states of the UN don't mind the fact that a peacekeeping mission, a UN peacekeeping mission, is necessary in Donbass. Well,
first of all, we have to once again reiterate that this is the Ukraine's initiative. It has been spoken. We mentioned this initiative back in, I think, 2015. Since then, Russia, as the aggressor country, didn't even want to hear this idea. But lately, we are witnessing a situation when Russia, as I mentioned, partially agreed to this and produced its own vision of the United Nations peacekeeping operation in the area. What Russia has proposed, we cannot accept, because Russia wants to place UN peacekeepers, as it stands now, simply on the line of the disengagement line, which we cannot accept, and only to safeguard the OSCE monitors. Our idea is to launch a big peacekeeping operation on the whole territory of eastern Ukraine, in particular on the border, on the state border between Russia and Ukraine.
And clearly Kremlin is not happy because it doesn't want to grant access to the occupied territories,
Kremlin
right?
is not happy, but like I said, we need to start the process and we need to continue talking to countries, to member the Security Council in the first place, and to Russia itself. And as you know now, the Kurt Volker, the special representative of the State Department, is doing kind of a shuttle diplomacy. And I think the main topic of his consultations, let's say, not negotiations, but consultations with the Russian side, involves the deployment of the peacekeeping operation in the area. And let's see what's going to happen. I think that this is we have a good prospect. We have a good opportunity now to involve United Nations more and more in the resolving of the situation, and that will help, in a way, Russians to save face and to get out of Ukraine.
Donbass is not the only territory occupied by Russian hybrid forces. What about Crimea?
Well, Crimea, I think, is a bit different story. When we talk about Crimea, we are talking about the annexation. Legal
annexation, whereas Donbass is illegally annexed.
Annexation is always illegal.
Yeah, okay. So, official or unofficial,
and
then?
I think that these are two, although in a large sense, this is the same problem because the instigator of both situations is Russia.
Yes.
But as far as Crimea is concerned, it's more a legal problem today. And I think there are two tracks available of resolving these two problems: political negotiations and political resolution involving the Security Council as far as the eastern Ukraine is concerned, and involvement of the legal international institutions in the resolving of Crimean situation. You know that we have placed in the International Court of Justice in The Hague a complaint against Russia. This is not, the complaint is not exactly about the annexation. It's about the violation by Russia, violation by Russia of two international conventions. But when we come to a successful solution or conclusion of those two cases, that would be a huge step in the direction of the occupation of Crimea. But I don't see in the immediate future, in the nearest future, any reasonable sign that Russia will backtrack from Crimea. But we need to invigorate our.
But it is possible overall.
Well, everything is possible if you remember the illegal, let's say, occupation by Eastern Germany was more than 50 years by the USSR forces, and that would also, we have in the history, we have many cases when, for instance, USSR has occupied as Baltic states for many years, and no one recognized that occupation as a fait accompli. And in the end of the day, they regained their independence. So I think it's possible, of course. It's not, like I said, a task that would come immediately, but we need to find ways and means of how to deal with this situation. And the legal approach, I think, is the only feasible approach to the resolution of this situation.
Well, hopefully Ukraine gains its territorial integrity anytime soon or anytime long, but it does
I don't want to put any time frame on this.
Yeah, it's hard to do that. It's hard to produce forecasts.
It's impossible. I think the solution or resolution of the situation in the eastern Ukraine is closer As far as the Crimea situation, I think it's a long story, and what we need to do is we need not to forget this. When we talk about Russian aggression against Ukraine, we absolutely necessary to remind international community about this illegal annexation of Crimea by Russia. You remember the situation in Afghanistan, for instance, when Soviet forces occupied and the United Nations was involved in the resolution of the conflict, and finally Russia withdrew. Soviet Union rather withdrew its forces from the territory of Afghanistan. So only the constant reminding about and finding maybe creative mechanisms of how to deal with the situation in Crimea will bring the solution closer. Will bring it closer, and but difficult to mention any time when it happens.
Thank you. Thank you so much for coming. Thank you so much for this informative conversation.
Thank you.
That was Volodymir Khandogyi. He is the president of the Ukrainian Foreign Policy Association and an ambassador. Thank you so much for watching, and goodbye.